For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Shannon Derehove. I'm meeting with Dr. Greg Mills from the Brenthurst Foundation, who's discussing Malawi's Presidential Advisory Committee on the Economy. The President of Malawi, Banda, recently hosted a national dialogue on Malawi's economy and announced the creation of the Presidential Advisory Committee on the Economy. What is the vision behind this initiative?
I think the President really wants to start afresh with Malawi. She has inherited a very difficult situation in the country. Her predecessor, Binguwa Mutharika, who died in April, had really upended the economy in terms of both the relationship with donors, who are a source of about 40 to 50% of government budget, and of course in terms of not liberalising the kwacha dollar or kwacha exchange rate, and so running an overvalued currency which led to lots of imports and very few exports. So the first thing she had to do was really to try and stabilise the situation. She liberalised the currency. She's got the donors to come back in again and get the donor faucet open and the funds flowing once more. And now she has to turn to the prosperity or growth agenda. And this conference, the National Dialogue on the Economy, is about pursuing that agenda, about government setting priorities as to what it should be doing and what, perhaps more importantly, what it shouldn't be doing in the future. And the Presidential Advisory Committee on the Economy, PACE as it's known, is really to try and bring in ideas from outside, to infuse new thinking in the government, but perhaps most importantly, aside from just policy ideas and all that, is really to give a plan to help the government shape the prospects for a new growth agenda in Malawi. It's much more important to know not just what to do, but how to do it. And the PACE's role is to assist the government of Malawi in devising a plan to achieve President Banda's aims and objectives.
What are the current major economic challenges that Malawi faces, and how best will these be overcome?
In a nutshell, the country's challenges can be summed up by a simple statistic, which is this is a $350 per capita economy in 2012. So, it is a very, very poor country. It has limited exports, mainly tobacco, by accounting for about half of its exports. It has huge potential in terms of tourism. It has huge potential in agricultural terms, very rich lands. Of course, it has a lake the size of Ireland, which provides some agricultural potential. Things like sugar, nuts, oils, these can all be processed as well. It can just make the cost of doing business in Malawi itself lower. There's a considerable amount of mining potential as well. So to move from being a $350 per capita economy into realizing all of these objectives, of course, is going to demand an economic strategy, a vision for the future. It's going to demand making the country a cheaper and a safer place to do business. But if Malawi grows its economy at 5% per annum, it's going to double its economy in about 15 years in per capita income terms. And that's 5% real growth. If it grows at about 10%, it's going to take 7 years. It really has to get over 10%. Otherwise, in 15 years' time, if it grows at 5%, it's still going to be a very poor country at $700 per capita economy. So it wants to be $700 in 5 to 7 years and sustain that pace for a very long time. And getting to those growth rates, which they haven't been able to achieve consistently, is going to be the major challenge for Malawi. To do that, they have to create the enabling environment for business, and that's what we're essentially trying to help them with.
President Banda has described the Presidential Advisory Committee on the Economy that she has assembled as her brains trust. Who are the members of the advisory panel, and what will be the nature of their involvement? And how often will the advisory committee meet?
The advisory council is 20 members, 5 of whom are Malawians. Other 15 are drawn from a whole variety of different sectors, different experiences, and from different regions. There are a couple of Latin Americans, in fact 3 from Latin America. There's a former Reserve Bank governor of Indonesia. There's a very experienced Singaporean diplomat, particularly who experienced not only in Africa but in other Southeast Asian developing contexts such as Cambodia. There's a former Minister of Trade of Costa Rica. There's a couple of South African business people, one with particular experience formerly in the airline sector. So it's really a blend of people with different experiences both in business and the private sector or in academia, but people who by and large have all had government experience, whether it be in Western Europe or Central America or Southeast Asia, they know the difficulty of operating within government. So you don't get these sort of, blue sky plans emerging, which academics such as myself are perhaps all too keen on. But actually these are plans infused by a sense of reality of what is possible. And the Advisory Council's work is really going to be about taking ideas from elsewhere and helping to try and adapt them to the circumstances that Malawi finds itself in. But we should not forget, this is not outsiders coming in the true consultant's way in Africa to try and tell a government what to do. In fact, this is all about the government of Malawi taking the advice of others and then employing it itself with regard to the economy. We are not there to do the government of Malawi's job. We're there to try and support it in the way that they determine will be best for the country and its economy.
Your organisation, the Brenthurst Foundation, has assisted in organising the national dialogue in Malawi. Will you continue to be involved in this process?
Absolutely. We are the Secretariat for the Advisory Council for PACE. We were involved in the national dialogue, as you mentioned, in terms of helping to run the event, which was held at Mangochi on the banks of Lake Malawi. And we're there as a resource for the President. We're there not just logistically to bring these people together, the Advisory Council together 3 times annually from this year, but we're there to provide research inputs as well for the President. In fact, we have a number of bits of research ongoing at the moment. One on looking at trade and tariff structures for Malawi, how to use that perhaps in a more sophisticated and a more growth oriented sort of fashion. We're looking also at mining. There's a huge amount of potential in mining, but we really need to look afresh at the whole debate around benefits from production and beneficiation. All too often African countries get hung up on beneficiation at the expense of actually just getting things dug out the ground and upping production for exports. And then of course we're looking elsewhere at tourism, particularly at the potential concessioning of Air Malawi, which really doesn't fly but protects its current routes, and that's led to Malawi, which has this tourism potential, being one of the most expensive countries to access. The flight from Lilongwe to Johannesburg return, because essentially it's dominated by South African Airways, is now $1,000. Now, very hard for anyone to visit Malawi and pay that sort of money, and the hotels don't match that high-end market, at least at the moment. Government also has to get out of the hotel business. It owns 6 of the top hotels. This is all inherited by President Banda. That will presumably happen hopefully over time. And so that'll help to open up the space, the number of visitors, the number of fly-in visitors, very crucial because they spend more as well. So mining, tourism, the energy sector, the tariff sector, these are all things that we're looking at with a relish to try and help her with this prosperity agenda. And in fact, the sort of strap line, as it were, of this initiative is pointing Malawi towards growth. This is all about giving direction, a sense of purpose, and the assets, the intellectual assets, the analytical assets, and some of the human horsepower, as it were, to start this new growth agenda for the country. Because if it doesn't do that, it's very hard to see how Malawi is going to develop, given its pressures of population. This is a country which has increased its population 7-fold in the last 50 years. Its pressures of overpopulation and the absence of income. Without that, Malawians are really going to battle. So this is about an agenda for growth, but it's also about an agenda for a more positive and hopeful future.
Well, thank you very much. I wish you all the best with that.
Thank you.